The Holy Gospel of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, according to Mark. And when you see the abomination of desolation standing where he ought not be, let the reader understand. Then let those who are on Judea flee to the mountains. Let the one who is on the housetop not go down, nor enter his house to take anything out. And let the one who is in the field not turn back to take his cloak. And alas for women who are pregnant, and for those who are nursing infants in those days. Pray that it may not happen in winter. For in those days there will be such tribulation as has not been from the beginning of creation that God created until now, and never will be. And if the Lord had not cut short the days, no human being would be saved. But for the sake of the elect, whom he chose, he shortened the days. And then, if anyone says to you, Look, here is the Christ, or Look, there he is, do not believe it. For false Christs and false prophets will arise and perform signs and wonders to lead astray, if possible, the elect. Be on guard. I have told you all these things beforehand. But concerning that day or that hour, no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. Be on guard, keep awake, for you do not know when the time will come. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Christ.
In 1979, there was a movie produced called All's Quiet on the Western Front. And it actually was based on a book. And for those of you who don't know, and for those who remember it was a long time ago when it came out, it is a story about 20 youth who, upon graduating high school, enlist into the German army. They train together, and then they're sent to the Western Front together. And throughout the story, you watch kind of the horrors of war, obviously, especially of World War I, which was trench warfare. But the number, as you know, starts to dwindle as it goes. It starts at 20 and starts ticking down, and they kind of show what happens to all our young heroes here, so to speak. It comes down to the end where there's Paul. He's the main character of the story, and Alfred. Now, Alfred was wounded and lost a leg, so he was sent back home. And at the end of the story, which is the part I want to focus on here, we see Paul sitting in the trench. It is October of 2018, yeah, just a few months. It's October of 1918. And he's sitting there, he's writing a letter to Alfred, and he's kind of just saying, hey, we're the only two left. Everybody, lost their life or they're missing in action. And he's saying, hey, there's word of an armistice. Is this thing really, truly almost done? Now, remember, the war's still going on here. The armistice hasn't been signed yet. Mm-hmm. So Paul, he finishes the letter, he folds it up, he sticks it in his little notebook. He's now one of the veterans in the trenches. He's one of the rough, tough guys who made it. So he's walking down the line, and he's checking each soldier as he goes, making sure they're awake because they're looking out over the field from the trenches, making sure they have all their gear and stuff, their gas masks. He's the leader. People are looking to him. He gets to a part of the trench where it's unmanned, but it's not critical. And he sits down to take a rest for a minute. And up in a tree across from him, he sees a bird. Now, Paul's an artist. So Paul's like, look at this. In this horrors of war, in this dirty trenches, look at this beauty. So he gets his paper out and he starts to sketch the bird. And he's going as quick as he can because, a bird's sitting on a limb. Who knows how long it's going to stay there. And sure enough, the bird takes off. Paul's like, oh, where's it going? He slowly edges up a little bit to kind of see over the side of the trench. And that's where in the movie you hear the rifle shot. And you see Paul fall into the trench, just the lower half of his body with the picture, and it crumples up. And you basically know what happened. Mm-hmm. Paul, almost at the end, gets distracted from the war and ends up losing his life. And it's quite a moment, and then it just ends. It just goes to a last shot, and there's a typing on the screen. Report from front, all quiet on the western, meaning that the armistice was signed. Mm-hmm. You're like, oh, like, whoa. I mean, intense. I mean, it's classic movie, classic Hollywood drama moment there. Got distracted. Whoa. We're going to talk about that in a little bit here. As you know, I mentioned earlier, the year is coming to an end. We're getting into, next week's a really cool week, guys. I'll give a slight spoiler. We're going to see our King in the Scripture. It's Christ the King Sunday's coming up, and that's all I can tell you because I don't want to spoil it because it's really good stuff. But as we get closer to the end, we do start to have some of these kind of apocalyptic readings, some of these end time type readings, and we will have some, believe it or not, in Advent too. We're just kind of like, why do we have this end times thing coming in Advent? But we'll see some of those come out. Which brings up, when you do have scriptures like this from Daniel, from the Gospels, from Revelation, Revelation, don't turn to the end of the book, unless you want to be really, like, I don't know, I wouldn't say scared, but like, wow. It's pretty intense in Revelation. But we have this focus on what's called eschatology, the study of the end times. And really, as Anglicans, Episcopalians, Lutherans, we don't, end time study, we don't hit very hard. We really don't. We kind of gloss over it. A lot of our eschatology views are they're very basic, and I'll just give it to you. Christ returns. Christ returns. It's in the creed. We say it every Sunday, that he will come again to judge the living. And we know it. It's in the creed. We believe in it. It's going to happen. Now, in this passage today from Mark, we have to understand before we jump into Mark 13 here, because we're kind of at the end there, 14? And then I jumped to 32 for a second, because that's an important passage. You have to understand the context here of why Christ went into this discourse. They were at the temple, him and the disciples. And the disciples are all looking around like, wow, look at this place. This is awesome. It overwhelmed them to be at the temple. Apparently it was quite the place to be. All right, it was just a serious, wonder of the world, you could call it. It was, it was in Jerusalem, and they were just awed by it. And then Jesus, I guess, kind of breaks the mood a little bit and says, "Oh, it's not going to be standing soon. It's going to be rubble." Thanks, Jesus. We're really enjoying this. But he goes into kind of this discourse of, hey, it's not going to be here, and I tell you what, bad times are coming. Did you hear the list of that stuff? The desolation. I mean, and that was part of the passage that we didn't have to read today. It gets into some scary stuff. I mean, we have, believers being persecuted, Jews in this case being persecuted. They have to run from the field in the middle of the day without grabbing their coat. I mean, this is like intense stuff. So that's the context of what we're looking at. And Jesus goes into this discourse. And this really leads kind of into, okay, what does this say about the end times? And why is Jesus telling us this? There are many eschatology views out there. No, there really are. There are many views on, there are people that sit down and will start to pick apart every single little sentence of these passages, like from Daniel, from this one here, from Revelation, because the goal is to find out, hey, when is all this going to happen? Which means, hey, when's Jesus coming back? When is he coming back? And there's a lot of it. Now, in the 1840s, there was a gentleman called William Miller. He was actually part of the Adventist movement. Basically, his kind of theology and his Protestant affiliation, from that came your Adventists and that type of Seventh-day Adventists. But this is just not particular to Mr. Miller here. This was kind of some of the talk that had been going around in these 1840s here. He predicted that on the 21st of March, 1842, Christ was coming back. Wow. He preached it. Everybody in his church believed it. On the 22nd of March, everybody woke up. So, Mr. Miller was like, well, I was a little off here. 3rd of April, 43. So another year. So everybody's like, wow, cool, all right. They get ready for it. On the 4th of April, everybody wakes up. Okay, now what's going on here? Okay. Made a mistake. It's the 18th of April, 44. Now this time people are like, okay, well, just in case, we'll all go that day to church and, worship all night. When the 19th comes, nothing. Everybody's still there. You think at this point, Mr. Miller might have backed off the, folks, there was a fourth time. This was the 22nd of October, 1844. And the funny thing is this was even more believed than the other 3 dates. People were selling all they had. They were quitting their jobs. They were saying goodbye to friends. They were actually buying white robes to wear because, by golly, this 4th attempt was going to be the right date, according to all the charts. Folks, what do you think happened on the 23rd? A lot of people probably tried to call the boss. Oh, sir, I need my job back. Very awkward moment walking into the living room with the family sitting there. And then, where's all my stuff? This sort of thing, when it comes to apocalyptic readings, has gone on for quite a while. Okay, it's not just Mr. Miller here. I'm not going to read them all. 2 sides. 2 sides when Christ is coming again. Let me give you a few. 500. 500 by a saint nonetheless. A saint we respect. 1st of January, 1,000. You can understand that one. It's the first millennium. That's yeah. I could see 1 January. You got it all. Various stages through the 1500s, the 1600s, the 1700s. The 1800s really open up a lot. The doctrine of the rapture and stuff had kind of come out during that time, and the millennial reign and the post-millennial thing. That's when that was kind of developed in the 1800s. So you literally see it almost every single decade of the 1800s. There was some end of the world, Jesus coming back thing. Most recent, 28 September 2015. That was a guy with the billboard. Now, I've got some future dates for you if you want to take notes here. 2019, 2020, 2021, 2024 and 25, 2030, and if you really want, just kind of look, a little further out, 2057.
Oh, we won't care.
Okay, so yeah,
I'm not worried about that.
We're not worried about that. Isn't it interesting? I get. Let me read the last verse that I read.
I was going to say, that's not exactly what the Bible says.
Yes. But concerning that day or that hour, no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. Jesus didn't even know the date. Just the Father knows. When he's looking at Jesus and saying, all right, son, do it. Go. I've always seen, as a kid, I was growing up, and I remember I was scared. I was scared as a kid. The people in my church and my pastor were telling me, you could be left behind. And I'm like, me? I'm just a kid. I love Jesus. I lived in fear, and I'm like, then I got to thinking as I go, oh, wait, the doctrine of fear is not from God. This is not right. A lot of times you'll get caught in these eschatology debates and these studies and stuff, and you get so caught up in what's going on, you're just doing it kind of for yourself. It's like, how can I not be left behind? How can I make sure I'm there? Hi, God, I'm here. Believe me, when Jesus finally returns, you are going to know it if you're still alive on planet Earth. It's going to be a very obvious event. Extremely obvious. A lot of times when you see what Jesus is mentioning in the passage, what you're seeing is this description of the earth is not, this earth in sin is not a good place. It really just is not a good place. The world is living in sin. Of course there's going to be chaos everywhere. There's going to be things messed up. But the things we can pull from a passage, from the end times passages, three things real quick. First of all, the historic church has always held to what the creed says. Jesus will come again. We don't need to worry. He's coming again. The end times study is not an essential to salvation. It's not. You don't have to have a particular view of the end times to be saved. That's good. So I'm happy, hey, Jesus will come again. Yes, he will. Second, believe it or not, with all this stuff going on and we're looking at our charts and trying to figure out what's going on around us, guess what? We still have work to do here on earth. We still have work to do on earth. Souls need to be saved. And of course, third, they say it a lot in this passage, stay alert. And what it's saying is just follow God with all your heart. Love God. Love your neighbors. Be a good, solid Christian so that you're able to do what needs to be done. What I see happening in the church now, and it's really frustrating, is there's no urgency. See, simply saying Jesus will come again, we don't know when. Jesus will come again does give it a sense of urgency, right? Because you don't know. We could walk out of here today and suddenly in the sky, hey, Jesus, he's there. But you don't see it in the church. There's no urgency to get out there and let's save the souls. Let's make disciples, as Christ says, because some of the things that are going to happen when Jesus comes, it's not the, warm, fuzzy bunny rabbits hopping everywhere, and everybody gets a puppy. No. There's a judgment. There's a judgment that comes. We sit in a time when people look at us Christians and kind of look down upon us sometimes, I think. We really do. People look down upon us. What I call this, and I was thinking about this today, you know how in the political realm, we've been calling the millennials snowflakes, right? Right? We've been calling them snowflakes. Folks, the church right now, we're Christian snowflakes. Let that sink in for a minute. We have our safe spaces, right? Our big churches. We have our safe spaces where when we're offended by the world, we can run to church, our big 1,000-member church. If you go to a 1,000-member church, I'm sorry, but even our little church, we run to our safe spaces as opposed to engaging the world, as opposed to standing up for what Christ wants us to do. We need to get the sense of urgency back. We need to not be distracted. Like Paul was distracted in the last days, very, very near the end, and lost his life. Folks, let's not be distracted by the timelines and well, you can call them conspiracy theories, I guess, right? Or just the rhetoric that says, it gets caught into this end time stuff. Let's be focused on the mission, the urgency of reaching out to the people around us and touching their hearts. I don't want to be a snowflake Christian. I grew up in the 80s, and that was rough and tough as a guy in the Army. I definitely wouldn't want to be a Christian snowflake. I want to go out there and, let my light shine before everybody around me, even if it's just how I act and what I do. Not necessarily, telling people. But that's fun, too. It's getting more fun as it goes here, telling people about God. So I just want to encourage you today. Remember, Christ is coming. And I'll say even soon. Amen.